Who doesn't love free birth control? Adapted from its original UK run, Supernanny aired on ABC from 2005 to 2011, and it made a whole lot of parents feel a whole lot better about their own children. The show followed Jo Frost, an accomplished nanny, as she traveled from household to household, providing struggling parents with new techniques and strategies.
You need to pay attention to my tips and tricks.
Now, I think it's important that I get this out there ahead of things. I do not have any children of my own, but I do have lots of experience dealing with other people's children. I've worked at summer camps, I've worked at schools, and I've babysat a lot. That said, let's carry on. In today's episode, we meet the Kylans, a Midwestern family with 4 young children. Tam and Sean are both 27, which absolutely blows my mind because I'm currently 2 years older than they were then. Wow. It's gotta be the hair, right? I feel like they have adult hair. Meanwhile, I haven't changed my hairstyle since I was a teenager. Anyway, Sean and Tammy have 3 daughters, 6-year-old Haley, 4-year-old twins Miley and Malia, and a 1-year-old son named Layton, who doesn't really factor very much into the episode.
Hi, this is the angel of the family.
That's not gonna give any of the kids a complex or anything. It's pretty clear to see that these children are a handful and a half. There's a lot of hitting and a lot of screaming going on, and I am frankly exhausted just watching it 19 years later. Sean works as a firefighter paramedic, so he's gone a lot on 24-hour shifts, which leaves Tammy alone to try her damnedest to hold down the fort. And while you'll see how I feel about Tammy throughout this video, I really have to give it to her that those are a lot of young children to have at the same time, and to not have the extra support when your husband's at work, it cannot be very easy. And that's not to say that I'm blaming Sean either. He is up there with Tim from Trading Spouses as one of my favorite reality TV dads that I've seen. Tammy is home alone with the children when the super nanny herself, Jo, shows up. For the first day, she's there in her plum suit to be a fly on the wall, observing the family dynamic. We start out the day by watching Tammy get the girls ready for the morning, and we swiftly learn just how much of a perfectionist Tammy really is. She is so focused on making sure her daughters look picture perfect for no reason that she straight up forgets Layton in the kitchen in his high chair. Jo is not impressed. Tammy then gets the girls dressed in the exact same outfit, which features the harbinger of doom, a white turtleneck. Sorry, SpongeBob SquarePants, the best time to wear a striped sweater is not all the time.
One with a collar, turtleneck.
Personally, there is nothing I hate more than wearing a turtleneck sweater, as I'm sure my mother could attest. Immediately, our biggest tantrum thrower, Miley, is not having it. She is feeling itchy in that sweater, and I just feel so bad for that poor girl because Tammy does not want to hear it. She only wants Miley to wear that sweater so they can all match, damn it. The most egregious part for me of this whole thing is when she says,
Mommy has the same sweater on and it doesn't itch Mommy.
Yeah, Tammy, because you're 2 different people with different sensitivities. God, I think some people forget that children are people too. Tammy puts Miley in her bedroom while the tantrum wages on, and Jo meets with Haley and Malia in Haley's room, and that's, oh my God, is Haley's name really spelled like that? Haeley. Oh. Anyway, Jo asks how the girls feel about Miley's tantrums, and their answer is pretty clear. They are in headache city.
Headache, 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 headache.
Miley's tantrum lasts for a whopping 2 hours. Yup, 2 hours of screaming and crying because Tammy needs her to wear a sweater. Like, I can be fairly stubborn when I want to be, but my God, if Miley is that uncomfortable, just let her take it off, man. But no, Tammy's much more worried about Miley messing up her hair.
Nothing's good enough. Nothing is ever good enough for her.
What? Sean comes home in the thick of it all, and this is where I realize just exactly how Miley's name is supposed to be spelled. Oh my God. I get you want your children to stand out, but this is just setting them up for a whole lot of annoyance in the future. And this is coming from someone in the Red Zigzag gang herself. Like, I had to convince Microsoft Word so many times that my last name, Simonton, is a word to stay sane when I wrote all of my papers in school. When Sean arrives, looking quite dapper in his uniform, if I may, Joe hopes that he'll be able to squash the tantrum, but he does not. In fact, Sean makes it worse by deferring to Tammy, and it just makes the whole thing carry on for way longer. After this, Joe observes lunch, where Miley has yet another tantrum. Tammy decides that they're going to have mac and cheese for lunch, but Miley, she wants a kid cuisine. And who could blame her, honestly? When Miley starts acting up, Tammy tells her that she can have it for dinner, which, in all fairness, is probably what I would have said in this situation too, so I can't judge too hard. But Miley gets so angry about not getting her way that she goes full-on Real Housewives of New Jersey on her sister's board game. Sean attempts to put her on the timeout bench, and he even admits to Joe that this move was inspired by her, but he doesn't really know if he's been doing it right. And based on that look on Joe's face, he definitely is not. Miley ends up running to her room and slamming the door shut, which is one of her go-tos. Later that day, Tammy gets the girls ready, again, so she can take them grocery shopping. And this is where I believe Tammy's karma comes right back around on her. She can try to doll her girls up and make them look as perfect as possible, but no amount of matching clothes can make her kids behave in the car or in a store. And we've got another vacuum mom on this channel already. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not think a person keeping their house clean is a bad thing. I truly don't. I just hope that those little kids won't grow up to be scared of their mother like a certain family I may or may not have covered before.
If you come home and the house is a shambles, will you still love us?
Sean and Joe have a really emotional conversation where Sean reveals that Tammy's obsessive cleaning is getting in the way of their marriage, and I love Sean. He seems like a really sweet guy and a good dad. The bar for men is so low, isn't it? Joe meets with the parents and she goes over her observations with them. She starts out by saying that their children are gorgeous, and Tammy really seems to latch onto that one. Joe continues to say that Miley is very strong-willed, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that Sean and Tammy mix up that strong will with power and control. When Joe tells Tammy that their morning routine is particularly egregious, she asks Tammy an armor-piercing question.
What is perfect? What's enough?
Tammy has a hard time with the criticism, which seems fitting for her level of perfectionism. And so begins Joe's takeover. On the first day, she decides to bring in routine and structure by creating a schedule for the family, and part of that schedule involves Tammy and Sean spending time together in the evening. Why does Tammy look so upset about that? Another huge thing that Joe introduces to the family is a reward system where each girl has their own flower pot. When they're good, they get to add a flower. When they're bad, they lose a flower. And when they earn 10 flowers, they get a reward. This system really seems to speak to Haley, who immediately starts cleaning up and earns her very first flower. Later on, Tammy starts cooking dinner, and she asks Miley to leave the kitchen. Miley, being Miley, has a hard time accepting this, and Joe tells Tammy to give her a warning. When the warning doesn't work, thus begins the timeout wrangling of a lifetime. Miley keeps getting up and running away, and eventually she realizes that she's just not going to get out of this punishment, so she goes to the timeout spot on her own. Progress, right? We love to see it. Later that night, Joe teaches Tammy and Sean the sort and separate technique, where all of the girls' clothes are going to be put into their own dresser drawer so they can pick out their own outfits. Ever the control freak, Tammy is not a fan and tries really hard to passive-aggressively talk Joe out of it.
We're going to be here till next year.
But the Supernanny will not be dissuaded. Eventually, though, Tammy sees how much fun her daughters are having with this, and That helps salve the wound of losing a single modicum of control. The next day, Joe devises a plan to streamline getting ready in the morning and introduces the A and B technique. Tammy can pick out 2 outfits and then let the kids decide which one they want to wear, allowing both parties the illusion of control. And I truly think this was more for Tammy's benefit than that of the girls. At first, the twins are not really into the idea and they try hiding under the covers, but in a twist none of us were expecting, Miley is the first to give in and she gets herself dressed. Next, Joe tackles the shopping issues. She provides the girls with whiteboards that have little pictures of the sorts of food they're going to pick up at the store. That way the girls can feel more involved and less slap happy. But it's not just the shopping itself that Joe tries to fix. No. She was also horrified at the girls' behavior in the car. They were constantly screaming and hitting and getting themselves unbuckled, which is so dangerous on so many levels. So Joe has the family do this car role play thing, and then Joe gives the girls these bingo boards to play on the drive. My brother and I used to play the flag game where you can count how many flags you see on your side of the road, and it was so much fun. The shopping trip and the car ride goes really well, and Tammy says something that to me was just sad.
Like, I was proud to have my kids in the grocery store for once.
Joe leaves to give Sean and Tammy a chance to utilize her tips and tricks.
Tips, tricks, community, opportunity, tips.
And there's definitely some room for improvement. The first thing I clocked was that the twins were in matching outfits again, but that didn't really seem to get addressed in the show. I'm just hoping that they happened to choose the same outfits and it wasn't just Tammy forcing them to. The twins argue over toys, and Sean loses points for trying to bribe them with flowers. Haley also gets a timeout over something that probably could have just been a warning. And then, and this is the worst thing for me, Tammy starts steamrolling Sean as he helps the kids get dressed in the morning. It is exhausting to watch.
I'm picking out these pants is gonna be one pile.
Okay, Sean, she doesn't have a shirt to match it yet.
Well, I'm picking it out.
Is that mine?
Absolutely not wearing a cheerleader shirt with army pants.
Let me look through their drawers, all right?
Joe returns to go over the tape and tells Sean and Tammy how she feels about their progress, and then she drops a whole ass grenade on Tammy.
Daddy and I are putting on a fashion show.
Tammy looks pissed. Joe and Sean pick out a few outfits for the girls, and Tammy likes most of them. She really hates Miley's outfit, though, and honestly, I thought it was fine, but I'm no fashionista, so you can take that with a grain of salt. After Joe is gone for good this time, Sean remarks that Tammy has changed the most out of all of them, which I think was the whole point of the show. The family's morning routine has gotten so much easier, and Tammy and Sean have a lot more time for each other, which is great. But apparently they got divorced at some point after the show. There's a reason it's not called Super Marriage Counselor, I guess. So anyway, that was Supernanny, another great show from my childhood. I hope you enjoyed coming on this journey with me. Leave some comments, drop some likes, subscribes, and stick around because I'll be watching more shows just like this. As always, if you have any suggestions, please leave them down below, and maybe I'll cover them in a future video. If you're itching for some more of my content, I've also done a bunch of other shows like Trading Spouses, Fear Factor, and Dating in the Dark, to name a few. I also got this really great comment a few days ago from Holly that perfectly encapsulates what I'm trying to do here. Thank you so much for watching, and join me next time when I watch something else.